looks like she's wearing a hat.
Hi, my name is Stacy Rolfe. I am the owner of R&R Ranch, and I'm out here right now with 3 of our smallest miniature horses that we have. Actually 2 minis and 1 miniature donkey. Molly over here is a donkey. Each of these horses that we have, no matter who they are, they all have their own separate background. I don't think that any of the horses that we have, any of our minis that we have a happy background. They all have somewhat sad stories and difficult lives that they've lived. Take Eleanor, for example. Eleanor is one of our newer ones. We got her from an auction in Ohio in September, and Eleanor was 19 years old when somebody turned her in to sell her at an auction. And that to us is a really sad situation. She's got an ulcer in her right eye, which leaves her just partially blind in that eye. But the way we look at it is you just don't know what Eleanor's life was like. And at some point in her life, over 19 years, she could have been someone's very well-loved little pony. She could have belonged to an elderly woman who adored her. And yet on the other hand, she could have lived a life much like Banks, who's inside, giving kids pony rides all of her life at a petting zoo or a traveling carnival. So whatever it is, we took her, and we want to give her at least her senior years to make them a really wonderful life for her. She's got some health issues that we deal with, but our Eleanor has really come around. She was very resistant to all of the horses when we first got her, which makes us believe that she was, because she's so small, often bullied wherever she was living. So those are the reasons that we do what we're doing and why we love all these horses. Molly is looking outside of the hallway. Molly's another story on her own. We got her in Illinois. She was from a breeding farm. As you can see, Molly is really, really cute, and so Molly would make really, really cute babies. But Molly had very little interaction with people, and so because of that, she was terrified of people when we got her. And a donkey's go-to response when they're afraid is to kick, and to kick with both legs, and to do it fast and hard. So Molly has gone through a tremendous learning curve that people are not bad. She is still skittish. Good girl, Molly. So you do have to approach Molly differently than you do everyone else. She's just a little bit, you have to be a little bit more slow with her. You have to be a little bit more quiet with her. And then Molly has learned that people are not all bad, whatever has happened or transpired in her life. She's a very sweet girl. She just hasn't had the best cards dealt to her, but Molly has come a very long way. So those are just a couple of our horses that we have. Like I said, everyone here has their own story, and all we do is try to give them a good life. Thanksy, can you look up for a second? I'm freezing. He's gonna go back outside.
Out he goes.
All right, thank you, because it's warmer out there. Okay, so the last one that's part of this trio is Banks. Banks is right over here, our little white polar bear. We got Banks when he was 18 years old from Arkansas. Banks was listed on Craigslist as a really interesting story, actually.
No, we found him on Facebook.
Oh, you're right. He was on Facebook. So one of the things that pony ride places will do, we have come to learn, is, at which he was a pony used for pony rides. He's really, really small. So from right about here down to the floor is about 30 inches. He's not much of size at all. But one thing that people will do when they have pony rides is when carnival season ends, generally in the fall, they will thin their herd because that's one less mouth that they have to feed over the winter, which gets expensive. And so that's when Banks was put up for sale. He looked, when we bought him, he looked, come on Molly, you can come over here. He looked nothing like the picture that was advertised, and if we can find it, we'll show you the
I
picture
have it,
of
yeah.
what he looked like. Come on, sweet girl. He came off the trailer, and he was literally just riddled with bite marks all over his body, all down his legs, which was proof that when he was living with bigger ponies, and we know he was, because the reason they said they were getting rid of him is because he could not keep up with the bigger ponies when they would take the kids for a ride. And so the bigger ponies would bite him and shoo him away from eating. He was underweight, his hip bones were very bony, his ribs, everything about Banks was pretty sad. We can show some pictures of how he looked. He also had, his teeth were very overgrown, which makes chewing really, really difficult. His feet were long. They were not horribly long, but they were long. So we got Banks taken care of. We really had to work on his overall physique and his physical health. But you know, the thing about Banks that I always say is that even when he came in such a raggedy shape, Banks was like this. You could tell him how much you loved him. You could tell him that everything's going to be okay. And Banks was just like this. He held no malice for people over the way he had been treated or the lack of care that he had. He just has a great disposition, and so we knew once we were going to get him healthy, we knew that Banks was going to be our therapy horse. And that's exactly what we did with him. We trained him and we worked with him on requirements, and he got certified through the American Miniature Therapy Horse Association. And Banks would go into a nursing home. It started out twice a month until our schedule got too busy, and then it went down to once a month. Banks is now 20 years old. He's a great ambassador for us. He is always happy to have his picture taken with people. He's gone to schools. He does Girl Scouts. So he's just he's an all-around great guy. He is also, I would say, when I was explaining about Molly and how scared she has become, or how scared her life is, she has become much more calm and trusting because of Banks. So little does he know, not only is he a therapy horse for people, but he has been Molly's personal therapy horse, because they live together, just the two of them, and Molly could see how we could love on Banks, yet nobody could do that to her. And over time, Molly started to recognize, hey, I think I want that happen to me, and she wanted someone to pet her. And so Banks doesn't realize it, but he's actually been her therapy horse too. And so much to the point that now when Banks does leave the stall, Molly will hang her head out the window and literally cry a heartbreaking bray because she misses him so much. That is also the reason why we have Eleanor in here with them, because they're all the same size. Eleanor is probably the smallest, but we thought that if Molly could become friends with Eleanor, that she would have someone to stay behind with her and keep her company, and not make her, be so sad when Banks has to leave. So that's this trio.